where users can feel confident to participate online or connect to those services. So simply as that, I leave it on the floor. I'll give the mic now to Professor to start his presentation. We'll leave the questions after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Let me see if I can get up the slides here. That seems to work. So the topic I was asked to talk about was really wide cyber capacity, skills, infrastructure, awareness. So I probably could fill a 12 weeks lecture with that kind of topic. So I will focus on the skill side, and I will focus on the role universities can play in that game. And that's international universities like Monash in Australia, together with on universities in the region. But to set the scene a little bit, in 2023 we had this first P4C conference in Fiji, and we had representatives of I think nearly all Pacific Island Forum countries there and their cybersecurity people. And we had a half-day session where the room was locked, invitation only Pacific people in the room, and they were discussing what was needed for cybersecurity in the region and for the development programs we can have, for skill building, for all the different things that we know that we need. And from this, they reported to us some requirements. And the reason why we were there is this one, because we have been working in the region since 2018 through that Oceania Cybersecurity Center. And we have worked with 10 countries. And we continue to work with them. So we have started with the cybersecurity reviews, and based on the CMM, that big model that Oxford has developed, that's kind of a standard a bit over the world. I don't know how many countries it has been applied to. I think it's more than 100 by now. And these really extensive reports, self-building policy and that. So we have done that. And we continue to work with the countries. And a few examples here is the 2018 Pacific IGF workshop that was on Iriki Island, I think, here in Vanuatu. We have done the CMM review with Vanuatu as well. And more recently, my colleague James and I, we've also given feedback to the digital transformation bill, which was not an actual project, more an informal support, but we keep on having the contact, and we believe in continuity of that. I think that's really important. In terms of continuity, I probably should mention that the Oceania Cybersecurity Center, as a named center, is in the process of being disestablished and wound down. But we have moved all that work to Monash, and also the people who were doing that work, mainly James Borman, is now an associate professor at Monash University working with me, so that work will not disappear, just the name that changes. So if you wanted to work with the Oceania Cybersecurity Center, it's now working with Monash University rather than with the center. So it shouldn't actually change a lot except the name, the label on it. So from that experience and the conference, what we have learned from there is there were 5 themes. And if you're interested in that, there's a conference report coming out of that. And the 5 themes should underpin all the things that we do. Number 1 was Pacific leadership, which is quite obvious. Number 2 was contextualized capacity building, and that's more complicated. It basically just means that there's no one-size-fits-all solution for everyone. We in Australia cannot claim that what we do actually really works. So we have too many cybersecurity issues and cases, attacks, etc., so that we cannot claim that we know how to do things. But they will probably work less in a different context. And if we don't look at the context, that is society, economy, culture, the way things are done, the way people trust, and all that kind of things, it will just not work. So that was number 2. Number 3 was we need to build an improved Pacific cyber ecosystem. So that means it actually needs to be in the Pacific. It cannot just be support coming in if something goes wrong, which, don't get me wrong, is really important to have, and it's important to fund it, but eventually it needs to be a sustained way of building this, and that means actually building it in the Pacific. We need to embed sustainability, which has a lot of different aspects. I can't go into it. It's getting more interesting with AI even, where I probably could spend another hour talking about this. And it needs to be inclusive, which means we don't want to leave anybody behind. And that means also small countries like, probably Tokelau is one of the smallest one, but also all the small countries should be able to join that. And these were very clear messages coming out of that conference, and they're in the report. And then there were 10 recommendations, and I will only pick one on building a skill base in the region. And there's just some evidence that this recommendation is actually used, because there's this submission to the UN in May 2025 from the PIF members, which actually is built on these recommendations. And I know of a few projects in the region that take this report and use it to evaluate the results and how the projects worked. And I can only recommend doing that, because I think it gives a quite comprehensive different view on evaluating cybersecurity work in the region. So based on this, looking at the recommendation 9, how can we build a regional skill base in a way that it actually stays and that is sustainable? So obviously we need a pipeline of talent, but obviously we also know there's brain drain happening. If people become experts in cybersecurity, there's a lot of opportunities to go for, and of course they take these opportunities. Why not? I've moved from Germany to Australia for an opportunity. Of course, everybody wants to do that, and it's going to happen. And we don't really want to take away opportunities, right? But we want to create perspectives for the people in the countries so that they're not pushed away. So we need an environment where the people who become experts have the perspectives to really use their expertise in the right way. Then if we look at contextualization, that's kind of a bit the flip side of it. If you don't have the experts in the country, it will be really difficult to contextualize what we do to make it actually work in the different countries, because all countries are different and we need to contextualize what we want to do to the geological differences, to the distances, to all the different things that we need to consider. Then the next point is, how do we actually do skills development? The classical way for Monash University is, if you get a new student, also with the Australian visa rules and the way our degrees work and what I get told from Central, how I need to do things, is the students need to be in Australia. So if I have a PhD student, they need to come and they need to stay with me in Australia for 3 to 4 years. And that's really disruptive for their lives. Maybe they want to stay after that, which is fine. A lot of students do that. But first it makes it difficult to go away from family, from jobs, etc. And there's not always a guaranteed way back into the jobs. So are there other ways to do it? Can we do, for example, a PhD while somebody is in the job and stays in their home country and maybe travels to Australia a couple of times, but the rest of the time they can do that PhD part-time, maybe co-supervised locally with Monash people co-supervising. And there's all different kinds of models to tap into the expertise that we have in the different places without creating this disruption. And we need to think about new ways of doing things. Then what I've said before, we need Pacific leadership. If we really want to have communities of practitioners, we need teachers, researchers in the countries. And then finally, we need to connect skills development with economic development as well. So we need to enable people to be ambitious in starting new companies, doing things, doing economic things with the expertise they have. And this is risk-taking, but we need to create an environment where that is supported, and we can do that. There's lots of existing programs. I've just picked one from where the National University Vanuatu was involved in. A lot of things are happening, so please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that nothing of this happens, but it's still a lot of pieces that we need to bring together and maybe need to strengthen. So now I'm from an international university, a huge university. I think just in the campus where I'm teaching, I think our students' numbers are roughly the size of Port Vila. So it's, if I get numbers between 40,000 and 60,000 for Port Vila, I think we have around 50,000 students in our campus in Clayton in Melbourne. And the whole university has like 90,000, so it's a huge thing. So how can we fit into this collaboration? So I've picked a few points. So first, we can collaborate. We can strengthen research and education. And if we want to do research on, let's say, contextualizing cybersecurity in the Pacific, making things that work, we cannot do it alone. We need the partners in the countries to work with. So that means we need researchers there, and it's kind of we're in the same boat with that. So we need peers in the countries to work with. And that is the next step, creating peer groups out of that collaboration. So we really need to look at having a group in Australia at Monash and having peer groups in the countries where we can work together. And currently we have individual people we work with, but we don't have these communities and groups yet. And where we can help is establishing continuity in this. Because I'm on a permanent position at Monash University, my colleague James as well as. So we're not going away, and we have time reserved for research, which we can decide on that we allocate it to working with people across the Pacific. And that is different to just going from one project to the next project. As an academic at a university, what I can do is I can have my long-term secret plan, which I'm talking about now. It's not that secret, but I can have my long-term plan, but nobody will fund me for my long-term plan. All projects are 2 years, 3 years, 5 years if I'm lucky. But I have my long-term plan. I can build it out of these projects, and that means I can have a long continuity working with partners across the region. And we're already in year 8 now, I think, with working in the region. And so I would love to find somebody to fund me for 8 years of doing something. But usually people are not so risk-averse, the funders. They don't promise me giving like 10 years. But anyway, we can provide that continuity as an academic. And I've picked a few examples of things that we currently do. And there's from Monash, colleagues from the Business and Economy faculty. They run the Pacific Action for Climate Transition Center, PACT, with the Fiji National University, where they have joint PhD programs, student visits, research projects and that. That's more around reacting to climate change. We have the Australia About Cybersecurity program this year with Fiji, where we work with the three Fijian universities, and we have 4 workshops over the year, and we bring people together into the workshops. And even for the people in Fiji, it's a new thing to work across the different universities on cybersecurity. And there's lots of other things going on, PhD co-supervision. I have a new 5-year research project with Australian indigenous communities on their cybersecurity, where we have connected to Fiji, also to work with their indigenous center at the University of Fiji. So there's lots of things already happening, but I think we need to kind of ramp it up and get stronger and extend it to other countries. There's a few additional challenges, and I've just mapped them out coming out of that 1-2-letter word AI. I'm not going to go into the details of these because we want to have a bit of time to discuss. So in all this picture of how Monash University can work, how other big universities can work with the local universities, and we have many of those, there's new complexities coming in from the sideline through that big AI question. And that's a really complicated one, and we don't have the solutions for it, and I think nobody in the world has. So we're all in one boat with that one, and we need to work with it. It's there. It's affecting our kids, our students, how they learn. Can they learn if they pick AI all the time? I don't know. What is the environmental impact of that? Climate change is not getting any better with the AI use. It's burning a lot of energy. They're building big data centers, so how does it affect us if we want to use it? I get the first students now who tell me, I don't want to use it. I don't want to be forced to use AI because I don't want to contribute to climate change. But then we get asked, you need to teach your student to use AI. So there's all these big questions around that, and then cybersecurity sits in the middle of that because it's trustworthiness of data, of information. It's tools that we might use to help us in cybersecurity without having the need to have all these people to crawl through logs and do digital forensics and all these kind of things, because we have these fantastic AI tools that might help us. Maybe. Can we use it in teaching to make it better, or is it worse? So these are big questions that are coming towards us, and I think we need to work together to approach them. And there's probably opportunities in that, but also risks and a lot of questions that I have around it. And I'm happy to discuss with anybody who is interested in discussing these topics and see how we can collaborate in the future. Possible vision from my side, what I would like to achieve in the collaboration is that in the future, we can have strong cybersecurity groups, academic groups in the universities who collaborate with Monash University, with others on curriculum development, on teaching, and the idea is that by collaborating with a strong university like Monash, I think we are somewhere rankings around top 50 in the world, we can really achieve a lot in terms of the academic success, and it might make it easier to really run a strong research group and attract people to stay, because they can have that success where the group sits. We would like to create an environment in all that where people are also happy to then go off and maybe build commercial entities, build companies out of that. If we find that, we can work on curriculum development. We have done that with a few universities. And we need to think about delivery models. So how do we need to adapt it that it can not only be in the university, but can feed into primary school, high school, and then also later lifelong learning awareness. So how can these kind of groups then build this foundation for bigger learnings around the community? So that's kind of the vision that my colleagues and I are currently discussing, and what we try to find the partners to really push for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And now we'll move to the next speaker, Dr. Jeffrey. He'll be talking on cybersecurity resilience in the digital age. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Professor Carsten, for the first session. I think he has actually touched on a very big portion, which when we talk about building trust in digital service, capacity building or literacy plays a big role in that. Now, I have been given a task to discuss on cybersecurity resilience, but with the focus of public trust and community safety. Now, that is a very big topic. As I said, it could be a day or a week a session, but let me try break this down in practical form or simple form for us to take on today, while maintaining the theme for the digital roadshow. Now, when we talk about digital or building trust in digital services, in the focus of public trust and community safety, there are many ways to actually see that or to speak on. But in short, as a technical or professional, any organization that wants to implement security, there's a common term or principle used, which is the CIA, or the confidentiality, integrity, and availability across And it is a foundation for cybersecurity. Whatever model you build or setting policy guidelines, of course, overall for protecting data. However, I won't be speaking on that. Years from late 2000s till now, they've been having quite a number of raids from establishing what computer emergency response team, national policies, legislation, and now the priorities of all different countries. I must say I'm quite happy to hear that respective countries in the Pacific, like Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Solomons, Kiribati, Samoa, Tonga, and even Vanuatu, and the other island countries have these policies and now working towards setting those priorities or pillars to address resiliency or cybersecurity resiliency. For Vanuatu, the journey started early 2013 with the cybersecurity policy, and later on the establishment of the computer emergency response team in 2018 that led to building the national cybersecurity strategy that you've heard the Prime Minister speak on this morning. Now, the Vanuatu National Cybersecurity Strategy has 6 priorities. If you had a chance to have a look, it's a bit old now. I guess it will go into review very soon. But those pillars, the very first one is cyber resilience. It highlights that and it placed that on a strategical approach, not by mistake. But cyber resilience is the first one, cyber security awareness is the second one, cyber capability and literacy being the third pillar. Then we have the addressing cybercrime. Then we have the international engagement, and final pillar is the cybersecurity standards and legal framework. Quite comprehensive, aligned to the National Sustainable Development Plan of Vanuatu, as well as aligned to the National Security Strategy of Vanuatu. This strategy gave birth to various legislations that we've heard and seen that Vanuatu has gone through. Now, these strategies with respect to cyber resilience, the aim there is to ensure we have a clear mandate for critical infrastructure. And I guess one challenge is, while we can have or establish or identify the critical infrastructure, but how do we address cyber attacks or cyber threats, particularly not in silos or not from a social media perspective as seen in the Pacific, but the supply chain, which is quite a big challenge at the moment. And of course, we hear around the world the issues around APTs and other types of threats which are very dangerous to our critical infrastructure. Now, the strategy outlines, with respect to resiliency, the pillar 1, cyber resiliency, the addressing cybercrime, which is post, it's not preventative, but recovery or addressing any issues that are there. But something that maybe the Pacific, including Vanuatu, that are slowly or jumping in now is ensuring we have proper security standards and legal framework. We've done our part in terms of legal frameworks, but adopting or creating national standards to ensure our organizations are in parallel or are in a secure bubble or ecosystem, that is something we need to work on. Now, that is a quick brief on what Vanuatu is doing, and we have done a lot, I must say, from the capacity building, as we've heard from our first speaker, to awareness. The Computer Emergency Response Team of Vanuatu has 2 mandates. The first one is respond to cybersecurity threats, and the second one is promoting awareness across the whole of Vanuatu. Now, Pillar 5 says international engagements, which empowers the government through the Computer Emergency Response Team, which is under the Department of Communication and Digital Transformation, to ensure the bridge between international to go into the second point, when we talk about resiliency, public trust, and community safety, I guess one way of seeing it is that for resiliency, we need to ensure design, we need to ensure leadership, and we need to ensure that there are proactive measures or steps taken to support that. Those are very practical. Otherwise, it will be just a beautiful strategy or policy that is written, but not really in action. So the second point is which I need to break down a bit there is with respect to public trust and community safety. There are 5 key points here. I guess the first one is proactive defense over reactive recovery. We need to start looking at shifting the narrative from fixing bridges or addressing issues to more building ecosystem or building immunity, meaning that we need to involve and invest in robust infrastructure and also automate how we see or detect or address threats. This means that not just from an organizational level, but also from a citizen or people level, where comes the previous speaker, where literacy is very important, or capacity building is very important. The very first step of resilience, from my personal point of view, is an user having the ability to identify a threat and make a decision, whether to address it or to speak to someone else and say, how can I help protect myself or stop this attack going further? Now the second one, the first one being proactive defense over reactive recovery. The second one is transparency as a trust builder. It is in security, we tend to preach about trust, but it's quite difficult from a practical aspect. We need transparency as a builder. This means that organizations have to be honest, or users have to be honest. The government as well have to be honest, transparent about how we use data, how we protect the data that is in front of us. We need to outline or clearly state our incident response protocol for everyone to understand and know how do we respond to that. How do we respect or draw a line from cybersecurity versus privacy? Those are very important. The third one, which is sometimes we hear the term or the phrase, human is the weakest link of security. But from this perspective, I guess we can see it as human-centric security. Resiliency isn't just technical. With this respect, or public trust, or community safety, it has to be a focus on social, or down as far as a non-technical aspect, which is social. The focus has to be built from a community-wide digital literacy approach, various programs. And I think the Pacific has done quite a number of efforts around that through, for example, the Cyber Week, or even through the examples of Paxson having a regional or Pacific-wide capacity building program, and of course, other regions of the world as well. The fourth one is, from a technical perspective, or organizational level, is there has to be a security by design mandate. It has to be a security by design mandate. We are integrating security at the very start of our design or our infrastructure with respect to those digital service development, rather than calling the team for DCTT or different stakeholders to come once you've designed that, and you are at the very end to approve the digital service, calling those security people in. You have to involve them or include them at the very beginning. The fifth one is collaborative ecosystem. From a national resilience perspective, we need to see more from a public-private partnership approach. We have to partner from a government to private sector and work together to ensure we build resiliency from that perspective. And of course, the last one, it is quite popular now, the aspect of data sovereignty and privacy. This is something that, in order to build resiliency or public trust, we need to strengthen our national capabilities, ensure that if we are handling or storing or moving or using data that belongs to our citizen, for example, personal identifiable information or PII, how can we handle that securely? And from a policy perspective or legal perspective, do we have any regulatory standard to actually ensure there is a sense of security or safety from a community level? This is all to do with the perspective ownership and safety. So I've given a quick rundown on that. I hope it's clear enough, but I'll be around for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffrey. Now we'll turn to our online or virtual speakers. I'm not sure if they're listening. Mr. Toby Moore, if you are online.
Not sure. Do you have me? Not sure if anyone has me. Okay, I believe you've got me. Might just start then by introducing myself. Hear me? Ben, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Not sure, Leonard, if testing, 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 testing 1, 2, 3. 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 Is this working? Hello, testing, 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 testing. Good to go. Okay. All right. It sounds like it's working. Apologies for the technical issues there. I might just quickly introduce myself. My name's Toby Moore. I'm a senior manager at SubCX. Apologies I couldn't be there in person. But to start off the presentation, I might just hand over to my colleague Finn, who is in our cyber intel team, to deliver a cyber threats brief of the Pacific. So Finn.
G'day, I don't know if I'll shoot up right now. I need to switch me over.
Hello?
Ben, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I don't know if my audio will go through, but we'll give it a crack anyway. As an introduction, I'm a senior analyst at CyberCX Intelligence, leading our geopolitical risk desk. Today, I'm going to provide a very short snapshot of the cyber threats to the Pacific region. Firstly, we judge the overall cyber threat to the region as moderate. And this is based on threat actors' intent and capability to target the region. Our experience working with organisations across Australia, New Zealand, Europe, North America, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific has indicated that there is a worsening threat landscape globally. Today, the barriers to entry for conducting cybercrime have reduced, and there are more threat actors because of it. Additionally, the availability of commodity and open source tooling means that these new actors have the ability to conduct attacks at a greater speed and in more volume. While both Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific have historically benefited from our geographic isolation as well as our kind of geopolitical obscurity, in a sense, we're now seeing the pace of threat activity we see in other parts of the world catch up to us. We judge that the geostrategic context in the region, digitalisation, AI adoption, and the use of legacy technologies are some of the primary drivers for cyber threat activity in the Pacific. Geostrategic context, of course, will continue to drive nation-state interest in and targeting of the region. Far-off conflicts, to an extent, will also continue to drive threat activity based on a country's perceived support for or opposition to parties of conflicts. Major diplomatic events and sporting events like the Pacific Islands Forum or the Pacific Games really heighten the threat of cyber attacks. From a technology perspective, rapid digitalisation and insecure adoption of AI is increasing connectivity and creating many socio-economic opportunities, while also increasing the region's attack surface and exposure to cyber threats. Finally, with the widespread use of IT and OT technologies that are legacy with insufficient or outdated security controls, and combining this with poor network asset visibility, this can considerably increase the risk profile and vulnerability to operational disruptions, particularly for critical infrastructure operators in the Pacific. In the last few years, we've observed a range of threat activity targeting the region. Nation states, financially motivated and issue-motivated actors are actively targeting the Pacific with cyber attacks that could have significant economic, national security, and social impacts. We're aware of at least 49 claimed and publicly reported cyber attacks targeting medium to larger organisations in the Pacific between Q1 2023 to Q1 2026. I'm unsure if the map is up on the screen right now, but we do have a map which shows the distribution of attacks across the region. Threat activity ranged across many Pacific Island countries, including ideologically motivated DDoS attacks, data breaches, ransomware, and extortion activity, in addition to espionage and influence operations, and a few notable incidents where we saw AI deepfakes of high-profile individuals being used to support fraud and other scam activity. Focusing on cyber extortion as one of the key threats to the region, this activity involves the theft of data and encryption of systems to secure a ransom payment from victims. These attacks have resulted in severe operational disruptions on top of financial loss and reputational damage. We've seen a number of extortion groups and activity increase year on year globally. Cyber extortion became the most common incident that CyberCX responded to in 2025, and unsurprisingly, given the pace of formation of new groups, at least 59 new extortion groups emerged in 2025, with an average of 5 per month. These trends also apply specifically to the Pacific, where we're aware of 11 different cyber extortion operations targeting the region, and observed activity has doubled in 2025 compared to 2023. Stepping back out to observing all types of threat activity, government was one of the primary targets of this activity, reflected in our second chart, where we see that 58% of victims in claimed or publicly reported attacks were government entities. We also see attacks against critical services, including telecommunications, banks, schools, ports, and energy providers. What the chart doesn't show is that the sector adjacencies. So while we see 58% of victims of government entities, in the Pacific, many government entities also provide frontline services. When we see attacks against multiple governments, health departments, this can cause really serious disruptions to the availability of health services. And the same is goes for the transport sector as well as the energy sector. We see government play a really big role in providing these services. In sum, the threats to the region has increased, with government and critical infrastructure being some of the most targeted sectors. We judge the pace of activity will only continue to increase as the Pacific becomes more integrated digitally with the rest of the world, and as the world takes a greater interest in our region as a whole. Thank you. I'll pass back to Toby.
Thanks, Vin. So we've been asked today to talk about cybersecurity best practice for small states. And The reason why we started with the threat brief was to set the context of why we believe these are best practices that I'm going to go through. But when we talk about cybersecurity today, one thing is abundantly clear, and it's not a question of when if a cybersecurity incident will occur, but when. The threats can emerge from anywhere within a government's digital ecosystem, from cloud systems, network infrastructure, and digital platforms, all the way to the end users themselves. For Pacific Island nations, the challenge is even more complex. Many countries face unique circumstances that is not experienced elsewhere, such as harsh environmental factors that cause physical equipment to degrade more quickly, the ever-present threat of natural disasters, and gaps in capacity and technical capability across their economies. These are very real hurdles that need to be taken into account. What this means is that cybersecurity best practice in the Pacific needs to be tailored to these realities. We can't simply copy and paste solutions from other parts of the world. Instead, we need to think differently to create strategies that work specifically for your region and your unique context. So when I think about cybersecurity best practice for the context of the Pacific, I like to start thinking about this as cybersecurity being a journey. It's not an end state. As we evolve, so do the threat actors. This means we must be ready to evolve our practices over time. But in doing so, Pacific Island countries must adopt a holistic approach that supports the security, reliability, and adaptability of their digital ecosystems, with strong data governance, robust cybersecurity strategies, and integration of sustainable technologies. So based on this, I have 4 key recommendations. The first key recommendation is to make cybersecurity foundational. And what do I mean by that? Cybersecurity should be embedded into every step of the process when it comes to developing infrastructure, applications, and systems. A core consideration, a part of this foundational aspect, is to use trusted technology vendors. It's tempting to favour cheaper or more readily available solutions, but prioritising vendors with proven security standards pays off in the long run. Trusted vendors can help ensure reliability, cost effectiveness, and more importantly, systems that are built with cybersecurity in mind. For the Pacific, where resources are limited, choosing the right vendors from the start is even more critical because it ensures that we are setting the foundations right for a sustainable and scalable environment. When it comes to people, governments should continue to invest in training to upskill and develop future cybersecurity professionals, fostering local expertise tailored to Pacific's unique challenges. Noting the struggle many people face these days is identifying people with the right cybersecurity skills. One thing we've identified is looking to the IT sector, where people already have a baseline capability and seeking to upskill those people. The third foundational thing I'd like to touch on is the processes. And it was something that Dr. Jeff was speaking about before, but ensuring we have the right foundational legal processes, frameworks, and policies in mind ensures that as we move along our digital transformation journey, we can ensure consistency, accountability, and coordination of our response to the growing cyber threat environment. So the second recommendation I have for cybersecurity best practice for small states is to centralise the management of cybersecurity resources. What do I mean about this? Well, Pacific Island countries often face significant challenges when it comes to resources, whether it's limited time, a shortage of skilled personnel, or tight financial constraints. That's why centralising the management of cybersecurity resources can create efficiencies and better outcomes. I know a lot of economies and many countries will have cybersecurity sits within different functions within government, but those functions are better suited to economies that have a larger scale in mind. So centralising the management of cybersecurity resources can help create a streamlined oversight. So this means having one team or entity responsible for managing cybersecurity with a clear picture of that individual's landscape, risks and vulnerabilities and responses. It helps avoid confusion and uncoordinated efforts that can occur when multiple departments or organisations try to manage their own security independently. This unified approach makes it easier to detect, respond and recover to threats and incidents. Centralising resources enables organisations to optimise expertise by pooling skilled personnel into one coordinated team. Many smaller nations face challenges recruiting or retaining top cybersecurity talent due to the limited budgets, competition from the private sector, or the difficulty of finding locally trained professionals. When these experts are centralised, their skills can be used strategically, prioritising the most critical systems and threats. Thirdly, centralisation avoids duplication and inefficiencies from a people and resource perspective. It's not uncommon to find multiple licenses for the same software or redundant security measures being implemented across different departments or organisations. These inefficiencies can waste valuable resources that could be better allocated elsewhere. So centralising this approach ensures greater visibility and control over purchases, processes and tools, ensuring cost effectiveness and alignment with the nation's overall cybersecurity strategy. Finally, centralisation supports more effective cross-agency collaboration, especially during emergencies. Cybersecurity threats don't often respect borders or jurisdictions within a nation. Having a single centralised team ensures a coordinated response that spans all affected areas. This is particularly important for Pacific Island countries where resources are spread thin. The third recommendation I have is that best practice is not everything. Now, this may sound initially counterintuitive. However, when it comes to cybersecurity in the Pacific, there's one thing we need to acknowledge, and that best practice isn't everything. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what works in highly developed nations with mature cybersecurity frameworks, larger budgets, may not be realistically applicable or realistic in Pacific Island countries. Largely due to the challenges and opportunities being more unique. Now, we know Pacific problems require Pacific solutions, and delivering cybersecurity outcomes in the Pacific requires a tailored approach that aligns with the realities of operating in these islands. A one-size-fits-all model doesn't work, and best practice frameworks, while well-intentioned and aligned to international standards, can sometimes impose standards or objectives that are not feasible with the resources available. Meaning, rather than taking meaningful steps to improve cybersecurity, no actions can be taken. What's needed instead is flexibility and an understanding that on the journey to uplift our security, all progress is good progress. This means adapting best practices to fit local needs, or rethinking timelines and expectations around making them achievable. Ultimately, for Pacific Island countries, the goal isn't to blindly follow global best practice, but to craft solutions that work within your context to move forward along that cybersecurity journey. Finally, the fourth recommendation is to prioritise resilience. When it comes to cybersecurity, one of the most important priorities for Pacific countries is to build resilience into the systems. As I mentioned earlier, our view is that cyber attacks are a matter of not if, but when. And having resilient systems means you're better equipped to counter these inevitable threats and recover quickly. Resilience isn't just about reacting to attacks, it's about preparing systems to withstand and adapt when they occur. This requires strategies like redundancy, decentralization, encryption, sustainability, and regular backups. So what does this look like in practice? One critical step is leveraging hyperscale cloud technology. The cloud can provide secure and resilient access to data, but it's also essential for governments to understand what data must remain localized and what can be stored safely in the cloud within the current regulatory and legal frameworks that they have in place. For some Pacific Island countries, storing all critical data locally can often create increased risks due to the threats that we identified earlier. So these being the increased climate events, threat actors, and increased degradation on technical hardware. Limited resources can put the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that data at a greater risk, which is why leveraging cloud technology appropriately can ensure that data is securely protected while maintaining its accessibility during times of disruption. Another key item to resilience is establishing automated backup and recovery systems. This means governments must ensure automated backups of critical data, particularly for public digital infrastructure, is across geographically distributed locations. For example, backups in multiple regions ensure that data can still be retrieved in the event of a cyber attack or hardware failure. Automation also takes the human error out of the equation, so it's not reliant on someone remembering to perform the backup manually. By prioritising resilience and implementing these strategies, you can take proactive steps to minimise the impact of cyber incidents and create systems that are better equipped to withstand disruption, ultimately protecting national security and critical operations. Resilience is key to ensuring the long-term stability in the face of increasingly complex and evolving cyber threats. So, in closing, protecting the cybersecurity of the Pacific Island countries requires a tailored approach that prioritises practicality, sustainability, and resilience. From embedding security into system design and centralising resources to focusing on specific solutions and building future-ready systems, these strategies ensure governments can address their unique challenges effectively. Cyber threats are inevitable, but by fostering collaboration and leveraging the technology available and prioritising resilience, we can safeguard our critical systems and data while building a secure foundation for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, and thank you very much to the panel for the discussions. Really appreciate the update from Professor Tan as well as Jeff. My question is to Jeff. I wanted to know how far, with regards to the awareness and the capacity that you've been conducting since the establishment of the CERT to the communities. Hearing what the professor was saying with regards to all the list of things that they are doing at the university, how do we use these as part of the program? If not, what's available that is left to be delivered?
Thank you. Thank you, Rowan, for the question. As I said during the presentation, the policy started back in 2015, and the computer emergency response team establishment was in 2018. During that establishment, as a government process, we have to go through a national consultation, nationwide consultation. So, but as highlighted in the strategy, awareness is the second one, and it is the mandate of the computer emergency response team. Now, this computer emergency response team is not only a government cert, it's a national cert, which means that the mandate is nationwide. Given the challenges we have for Vanuatu and the Pacific Islands, where with many developments, I guess for Vanuatu is more, there are other ones like the challenge around languages, our national languages, English, French, and Islam, versus other dialects. This brought those challenges, but it did not stop the team under the computer emergency response team or PCTT now. We started back since the establishment of CERT in 18. And that started by making the government, ministries, and citizens know about what CERT is, what is cybersecurity. In our dialects, no one knows about what cybersecurity is. Security is physical. Security is the law enforcement. So there's that challenge. And the reason why I was saying about the strategy is that during the consultation, we did an assessment to understand literacy. And hence, it became a pillar inside that. Literacy in Vanuatu, in terms of cyber or security or digital, quite low. Hence, that's an approach. So to tackle that with a very limited budget under the computer emergency response team, we had to play smart. We started by going to schools, going to communities, tackling primary schools and secondary, involving them in various awareness programs. And from that on, we took part in any national events. For example, the Digital Week or the ICT Week, the Public Service Week, the Agriculture Week, any events from a national perspective, we insert those programs in. As I speak, there's one that is ongoing, that is the ICT or Cyber Radio Talkback Show with PBDC. That's an ongoing one on Fridays, 8 a.m. Till 9 a.m. in the morning, as well as there's a joint program with the people who travel for seasonal workers or Family Ready project, where our team from the department goes in and spend time with providing awareness to communities, particularly those who travel. We do have sessions with the government members or ministries, but it is a very wide approach. In the past, we assessed them against how many schools and how many communities we do in a year. As of this year, we try to change that into quantifiable ways of evaluating how much awareness, and we are addressing from some perspective households, from some users who we can reach and provide those. And our approach is not a one-off. We target, sometimes you hear we say champions, or we target people who can share that, and that's why we target a lot of school kids. Another initiative that we look at is what we call a cybersecurity bundle, which we provide specific to communities, not just a one-off, but a repetitive one, to ensure we train them and they can train others. So it's a train the trainers approach. Another one which is quite a challenge, we tried back in 2020, 2021, and I believe tomorrow we'll have a further discussion on that, is with our Ministry of Education, and that is to insert cyber into the school curriculums. While that is still a challenge, but it didn't stop us from going to schools and providing that awareness. We also, we have an open door policy that if someone invites the department, we go there and provide that awareness, as long as they can provide that. However, cost is a very big challenge, but awareness or providing capacity building has not stopped. It's an ongoing initiative that we are carrying out. So I cannot give you the exact numbers of how many users or how many households or how many communities or schools, but over time we've seen our online environment changing. And one clear example is the social media environment. We see a change from how people converse or communicate. And we also see a change in how many reports we receive from our institutions when we receive reports on certain traits and stuff. When the computer image response team started, or the set started, hardly we receive reports, but now we do, and all sorts of reports. Another one is the multi-stakeholder approach, where we, because of our limited and constrained budget, we work with the law enforcement, the Bureau of Standards, and other institutions like the Family Radio, Internal Affairs, or Child Desk, to work together and provide that awareness across the entire country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chair. Any more questions from the floor? We have just introduce yourself and then ask the question.
Yeah, thank you so much to the chair and the speakers. I'm Alessandra Lustrati. I head digital development in the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in London. It's a real pleasure being here with you all. I just had a quick question for Professor Carsten. As you have focused in your presentation more on what is the role potentially of, and concretely currently of universities in supporting cybersecurity analysis and capacity building. If I can just shift you a little bit in your focus, I know that you have a lot of experience in having run a lot of the cybersecurity capacity maturity model reviews in various countries in the region. Without calling out specific countries, so to say, could you give us a flavor of the type of capacity that you've seen across, looking at the 5 dimensions of the CCCM model? Could you spell out maybe where you saw that countries had a baseline capacity that was already quite advanced, or whether they found that they needed to work a little bit more? Is it possible to give just a very quick aggregate picture of the region? Sorry for putting you on the spot, but I know you've done a lot of work on this, which is excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a really good question, and it's one that is really difficult to answer. It's because we have worked with 10 countries across Polynesia, Melanesia, Micronesia, with lots of very different profile, from very small Tuvalu to Papua New Guinea. So it's really difficult to compare and say summarize where it is. What I can say is that in terms of the governments, we don't see that awareness is a problem. So we think that all governments are very well aware of the issues that exist. So it's not that we go somewhere and people say, well, we don't see any issues with cybersecurity. So everybody knows exactly the problems, knows exactly maybe where the risks are, where the threats come from. But what is also similar everywhere is that the people actually working on cybersecurity is always a relatively small number of people, and they need to do everything. Like we have countries where we have a CERT that is just 2 people. It's probably the sign we need to go to afternoon tea. But it's we see CERTs that have only 2 people where they need to do everything. Like they need to look at the runtime security, they need to go out, do awareness campaigns and do everything. So that's a generic issue that we see. Another thing that we see, we only have done one review for each country, but if I look at the ITU Cybersecurity Index, if you look at, in collaborating with a country, what the individual activities are, we see there's a lot of quick progress in many, many areas. So there's a lot of things happening. We see there's, in general, issues with restrictions around money, budget, economy, natural disasters, etc. So there's a lot of issues that play against these activities. But in general, I think there's a lot of positive ambition and movement that's happening. But then at the same time, what we also see that there's also parallel development of technology and movements towards cloud and different other things where the questions that are kind of orthogonal to cybersecurity, like sovereignty of the technology, control of the technology, control of the data, privacy, all these questions are ramped up faster than we can deal with it. And that's not only for the Pacific countries, that's also other countries in the world, but we also see that a lot here. So it's probably not directly answering your questions, but it's...
Thank you. Any more questions before we wrap up? I think we are running out of time for this session. Okay. Any last takeaways that you can provide to our listeners online and also those sitting, Professor?
Yeah, a quick summary is probably, I think the main message is that we cannot do it alone, like nobody can do it alone, and we need to collaborate on it. And I can only highlight that we should follow the recommendations from the P4C 2023, where we find we get much better results, much more sustainability in the work if we did that.
Thank you. Dr. Chef?
Thank you. Quick reflection. Firstly, start small. We definitely need to see more public-private partnership and initiative in that. And I guess one big challenge for the Pacific is investment. We have to invest that. Security is not cheap. It requires investment and support with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Toby, if you are online, last takeaway that you can share with us. All right, probably he's already gone. So everything we are doing in cybersecurity is to increase trust. It is the core foundation and a pillar for adoption of digital services. Therefore, thank you for your listening this afternoon. Thank you, Professor and Dr. Chef, and also Toby. Let's give a big hand of applause to our presenters this afternoon. Thank you.